And one more feather in her cap, she really knows what it means to work across the aisle in a bipartisan way to solve problems and to work on solutions that benefit the folks in Congressional District number 3 and really all of Nevada. So please give it up for Congresswoman Susie.
Well, thank you all. First of all, I want to thank all of you for coming out to this town hall. You know, town hall meetings are a unique opportunity for us to get together, for me to be able to listen to your issues, for us to talk. We're not always going to agree on issues, but for us to have the conversation. And so I thank you all for coming out. I mean, in this environment today, I find that everywhere I go, whoever I talk to, there are many people in our country who are really disturbed and quite honestly very discouraged about the polarization in our politics today. And I find that it's very easy to demonize and condemn someone, especially behind the anonymity of a computer screen. And I really think the way to solve problems is first you have to start talking and you have to get together. And so I welcome you all here. Hopefully this will be a cordial conversation back and forth, and we'll talk about issues that are important to Congressional District 3. I'm hoping, you know, it's been a while since there's been a town hall in this congressional district, and so I hope to, in my little part, to be the beginning of change in our country. And for me, that starts by talking together and talking about issues. And again, we're not always going to agree, but at least we're having the conversations face to face. So it's incredibly important that you're here. Thank you for giving your time on a weeknight to come out in rainy weather. And as an education advocate, it was really important for me to have my first town hall in a school. So I wanted to thank CCSD as well as Silverado High School, our theater director who is here overtime helping us out, and Jamie Ditto, who's the principal here. I have to thank Mitch Fox, who has been an incredible leader in journalism in our community for many years and a community leader. So thank you so much for doing this. So it's been 75 days since I was sworn in on January 3rd. And I need to tell you that taking that oath in Congress, I will never have an experience, I never have had an experience, nor will I, that carries the weight and the honor of being sworn in to represent you. And I get chills when I think about it every day, but to me, it's more of the weight of the responsibility that I have to represent the people in Congressional District 3 in the halls in Washington, D.C. You know, every day, I'm focused on that every day. I plan to be focused on that to really make my service a service that focuses on the local needs in Nevada. You know, I didn't take a pledge to the Democratic Party or the Republican Party. I took a pledge to uphold the Constitution of the United States. And I really am focused on education, of course. In our state, we have the most crowded classrooms in America. We have a shortage of teachers. We have students who are being, debilitated by student debt. For-profit colleges that are going under and leaving students with the debt without anything to show for it, and predatory lenders who are focusing on our minority students, low-income students, and veterans. I want to focus also on health care. I think we all have someone in our family and if not ourselves, with pre-existing conditions, making sure we're protecting protecting the protections of those with pre-existing conditions, and of course continuing to work to lower healthcare costs and lower prescription drug prices. And I want to focus on veterans. We in Nevada are have the ninth largest percentage of veterans of any state in the country. 220,000 veterans call Nevada home. 50,000 veterans call Congressional District 3 home. And so I am very proud that I have chosen to serve on the Education and Labor Committee. I serve on the Higher Ed subcommittee, as well as the subcommittee focused on human services. And what that committee is really focused on is school lunches, making sure that we're providing wraparound services for students in schools. And that's all a continuation of the work that I've done in this community through communities and schools. And as a daughter of a veteran, I am proud that I also chose to serve on the Veterans Affairs Committee. And you know, when we send our men and women to defend our freedom, and when they return home, it is our utmost duty to make sure that they're guaranteed a life in dignity. And that means a job, housing, and of course, the access to the best health care that they can find. And I plan to, I'm the chairwoman of the subcommittee focused on technology modernization. This is a huge oversight opportunity. The VA is going through an electronic records modernization program, and honestly, it's going to be an electronics record modernization program that's going to be a model for the rest of the country. And incredibly important. And you know, the VA had led the way originally in electronic records, so hopefully we will be leading the way in modernizing it as well. You know, just a couple weeks ago, we had our first hearing on higher ed, on the crushing costs of higher ed and crushing debt, and I made the committee aware and brought to awareness the impact that it's having on our veterans, the predatory lending that is going after our most vulnerable communities. We also had a committee hearing on America's crumbling schools, and I rose my hand and spoke up about overcrowded schools in Nevada, and I was proud that I was able to get an amendment into the bill that addressed overcrowding in schools and studying what the impact it will have, and I hope to have a standalone bill on that in the future. So, and I want to talk regarding veterans. You've all heard this, I don't know if all of you have heard this statistic, 20 veterans a day take their life. To me, that is an atrocity in our country. And 6 of those, there's a statistic that only 6 of the 20 are accessing VA health care. So we have a big responsibility to make sure that we're doing enough outreach, we're working with the veteran service organizations and getting out there. And President Trump, to his credit, put additional funding in his budget that allocates much more money towards mental health services for veterans and much more towards outreach. So I hope that in the next 2 years we can make some incredible gains in making sure we're getting to our veterans before it becomes a crisis situation, and we're doing that outreach. And speaking of serving veterans, I don't just talk the talk, I walk the walk, and I've hired 3 veterans as part of my staff. Andrew Holbert, who is back there, and Jahira Farias is out back. But speaking of my staff, Mitch hit on it, and one thing that is incredibly important to me is what I do in Washington is just one small part of what I do, and really helping people on a daily basis solve their problems that they're facing here is something that's incredibly important that we're doing with excellence. And so I just want to give you a couple statistics to show you how involved we are. We've had 277 meetings with constituents. 85 of those have been official meetings that I've attended. 58 have been public events. We've closed 36 cases, saving $28,000 for those constituents. We've answered 8,158 letters. We still have more to answer, so if you have written a letter where there is a backlog, it takes a little while to get caught up. And I've co-sponsored 47 bills, including 3 pieces of legislation that I've introduced that were bipartisan. So my staff is here, and we're here to serve you, whether it is cutting through red tape with federal agencies. We're now accepting applications for military academies. We can help you with federal grant applications, and if you're visiting DC, we can also help you with that. So I just want to quickly introduce my staff who's here. Michael Minozzi is my district director. Gabby Everett is my associate director. Jahaira Farias is one of my representatives focusing on Latinx issues as well as Veterans Affairs. And Carl Catarata, my millennial. No, they're all millennials, actually. But, and then Crystal Gamma, who is not here right now, she is our staff director. Oh, and Ashanti McGee is also one of my field representatives. And from Washington, Brandon Cox is my chief of staff. And Sam Morganti runs my legislative shop in DC. And Sarah Abel does my communications, hence the job. So anyway, we are here to serve you. That's what this job's about. And I thank you for coming out. And let's get to some questions. All right. Oh, I need to introduce my husband, by the way. He's here. I forgot my chapstick, so he brought it for me. So thank you.
Well, as the Congresswoman said, let's get right in. We have a lot of them. We'll try to get to as many as we can. And don't mind, I'm going to say her name. You wrote it down, Therese Crawford. She says, what are your thoughts on the plutonium shipment to Nevada?
Not good. So, first of all, I believe that the Department of Energy has deceived the state for a very long time. And this was a shipment of military weapon-grade plutonium that was done in the middle of litigation that we knew nothing about. Now, I understand the department, you can't know about the shipment of this plutonium. That's how dangerous it is. So they can't tell you, hey, we're gonna be shipping plutonium on Wednesday at 4 o'clock, okay? So I understand that the national security needs to do that. The fact of the matter is, we just found out today, the reason it was shipped is because they have not constructed the storage that they need in South Carolina where the electricity, the energy was, where it was produced, not the energy, where the weapons were produced. And in fact, the governor of South Carolina said that if they had completed that, they'd be happy to keep the plutonium there. So I'm going to work with the governor as well as our delegation to see if we can't find an answer to that and get the plutonium back out of the state.
Okay, next one is from Jody Tyson. And she says, when the federal budget deadlines hit and government closes down, all or partial, it hurts all segments of our community, especially federal workers, and as you know, there's a number of them in this state,
Yes.
and those in businesses that depend on open business and government. What can freshman representatives do, or a coalition, to keep the government open?
Thank you. So, yeah, I must say, I meant to say this in my opening remarks. When I was sworn into Congress, it was the first time a class was sworn in during a federal government shutdown. It seems to be that's the new negotiating tool. And so it really brought home to me just how divided our government is and how much we have got to get together and work together and find solutions. And so I spent 2 weeks with a bipartisan freshman group. We produced a piece of legislation that we introduced that basically will lay the groundwork to prevent government shutdowns from happening. I don't know if it will see the light of day in committee. We made that. But the bottom line is, I believe that it starts from working together. So I've joined the Problem Solvers Caucus, which is a caucus that is evenly divided between Democrats and Republicans. And we were instrumental in getting some rules changes that will make it more likely for legislation to see the light of day on the floor or in committee. something that leadership has been able to block anything from coming if they don't want to see it. This allows, if you do get a bipartisan majority, you can see something come to the House. So between those two efforts, I hope that, first of all, I think we all learned our lesson how devastating a government shutdown is to so many families in our community. There are many contractors who were furloughed, who have not been paid, and it had a devastating impact on our national economy. And so I think that there is certainly an appetite that we are going to be working together to make sure that never happens again. But hopefully, if that does, we have some opportunities to bring some legislation forward.
Okay, the next question, Jason Brooks, I believe. And how can you help veterans and their dependents on opioids and allow healthier alternatives such as CBD oils?
Listen, opioid crisis transcends all communities. Particular, our veteran community is particularly vulnerable. And again, I know that the VA has made incredible investments in mental health and outreach services, but also, again, this comes from how are we going to control our pharmaceutical industry? And I'm proud that I was one of the sponsors of HR 1, and we voted it to bring in the incredible influence of special interests in government. But the bottom line is it's a multi-pronged approach. We have to bring transparency to the pharmaceutical industry, make sure we're regulating that end of things, but also you have to have alternatives. You have to have intervention and prevention and mental health services and make sure it's readily available. The one issue that, we have 4 psychiatrists in Nevada that accept Medicare. Okay, we have a major, major problem with mental health practitioners and the availability. And so one of the focuses that I'm going to have is through higher ed, making sure that we're filling out that pipeline. And more importantly, we have a medical school, but we don't have residencies. So we're training doctors, but we're sending them out of state. And so working with the VA to try to get more residencies into our hospitals so we have more doctors who are coming here and practicing and starting their practice here.
The next question comes from Judith Whitmer. I believe that's pronunciation, and I think she wants to know about your feelings regarding the environmental Green New Deal.
The environmental Green New Deal. First, one thing that I'm happy about the environmental Green New Deal, because it is shining a light on climate change as an existential threat. And I don't know who knows every aspect of the Green New Deal, but it's a proposal that includes us getting to net zero carbon emissions in a decade. It includes many other aspects of the deal. Some of it I don't quite understand. And so I think it is our first bargaining chip, and I think it's something that we can use to start to work. But again, I'm going to remind you that we are in a divided government right now with people that don't even believe that climate change exists. And so there are concrete steps that we can begin taking. I think the first and foremost, understanding that this is a global problem and that we need to rejoin the Paris Climate Accord. And we need to, as residents of Nevada, we stand to gain so much from a renewable economy, and making sure that we're leading the way in research and investment and workforce development. We can be an exporter of renewable energy. We just passed a ballot initiative that calls for 50% reduction in carbon emissions by 2030. And so we have an opportunity to be a leader. And as a member of Congress, I hope to be a partner in making sure we're bringing that investment money here so that positions Nevada to be a green energy leader.
Can I elaborate on that, please?
Yeah.
India and China are the worst polluters in the world. So why don't we bring pressure onto them?
Amen.
You know,
Me and Shannon are also leading technology.
Well, listen, I think being part of the Paris Climate Accord is bringing that pressure, and I think that, you know, we have it in our power to set the example and do what we can.
you know, what do you think about no cars, no airplanes?
Can you put your questions on the?
We've got to get these, because there's a lot of people want to ask questions. Look at the fishbowl.
You're not elaborating.
We've got a lot of questions to go through.
Yeah. Well, you're not answering fully all the questions.
The question was, what do I believe in the Green New
Right.
Deal? And
That Green Deal is no
I said there were
cars.
many parts of the Green New Deal that I don't necessarily agree with, and there's unintended consequences. It's a proposal. It is a first bargaining chip proposal. And I said that I think that it is something that is, you know, it is a proposal. It's not a clear set of exactly what's going to be done, so I can't comment. I mean, the comments you made were based on an interpretation of what it was.
No, they were actually
And,
made
well, it was
by them.
no, it was based on an interpretation of what was actually in it. And again, I mean, I don't believe that we will be at a point where we have no air travel, and certainly as a representative from the state of Nevada, there is no way I can ever buy into that, because that is the source of our economy. And again, I said it is a framework, it is a first bargaining chip. I believe that climate change is an existential, I mean, look at what's happening. It's not just sea level rising. Look at the tornadoes we have, the fires we're having, the floods. I mean, this is existential. This is happening right now. It is not. So my bottom line is, this is an issue that we have to take on, and I'm committed as a member of Congress and a member representing Nevada to stand up for our interests. And so that's how I will approach looking at the Green New Deal.
Okay, this is a question from Wendy Starkweather, and she says, we appreciate that you've always been a gun violence prevention ally. Thank you for your support of H.R. 8. We know there is talk of a federal red flag bill, and I'd like to know your thoughts on this legislation.
Yeah, well, first of all, thank you. I mean, we in the state voted 2 years ago to pass comprehensive background checks. And we live in a state where more people are killed by gun deaths than traffic violations. We're number 8 in terms of suicides by guns. We're number 3 in terms of domestic violence deaths. It is my responsibility to make sure that I am leading us taking common sense steps. I want to be clear. I don't want to take people's guns away from them. Okay? I want us to have common sense measures to keep guns out of the hands of people that shouldn't have them. You know, I just read an article the other day regarding the red flag that, you know, several, I don't know if it was all, I forget the exact statistic, let's just say the majority, vast majority of these mass shootings, there were warning signs. I'm concerned about civil liberties, so I want to make sure that we protect people's civil liberties, but I also believe that there are opportunities that we have, and granted, with the work I've done with communities and schools, dropout prevention. I mean, you're going in, you're having students who are struggling. They become behavior problems because they can't read and they're frustrated. And, you know, many times we just suspend them, we put them in a separate class, or you do behavior intervention and you take the time to understand what is the core of the problem. And, you know, and again, this is an area where I think we will work across the aisle. And it is mental health intervention and mental health assessment and getting services to people that need them. And so that part of the red flag law, I completely support, making sure we're identifying potential triggers and getting service. That's just one part. The most important part is getting the services to the people who need them and making sure we're intervening and we're helping and we're preventing.
Judith Whitmer has a question about health
Judith, where's Judith? Oh, okay. You're asking a lot of questions.
Really what I want to know is, do you support HR 130 for Medicare for all?
Medicare for all? That is a good question. First of all, I lived with parents who did not have medical coverage because of pre-existing conditions. Both my parents were 64. My father had lost his job a few years before his COBRA had run out. They couldn't afford it. They both had high blood pressure. My mother suffered a heart attack, and the bill was equivalent to the cost of their home. And the hospital was not willing to accept anything from them, not like what they would accept from an insurance company. Here's the thing. I believe that all Americans should have access to high quality, affordable health care. I believe that right now we are dealing with an administration that almost daily attempts to take away health care from 20 million people. And it was in the budget that was just proposed. There are efforts all the time to do that. And so again, as part of the Problem Solvers Caucus, making steps right now, I have 2 years. In these 2 years, I want to focus on, the Affordable Care Act is not perfect, okay? It's not, to me it was the beginning, and I think there are options, and certainly an option of potentially lowering the age for Medicare buy-in is an option at this point. And so that, to me, is what I want to be working on in the next 2 years in Congress.
Repeal the HMO Act of 1973.
Okay, next question is from Anna Wood, and thank you for your service and education. Is Congress addressing apprenticeship opportunities and other programs for those who choose not to go to college?
Yes, absolutely. We just had a hearing, actually a roundtable in the Education and Labor Higher Ed Subcommittee about this exact topic. There's a sort of a multi-pronged approach. First of all, we know that infrastructure is a major initiative for this administration. It is something that I believe we can get bipartisan support, and as part of that, there will be an allowance for apprenticeship programs. Nevada has incredible apprenticeship programs here through our labor community, I think as overseeing higher ed, recognizing that a 4-year degree is not the only path to a good living. But we have to identify what industries we want to attract and make sure that we're developing through our community college and our higher ed program, those programs, and then also allowing for accredited quality apprenticeship programs and making sure that if companies are doing that, they are reaching an accreditation and a standard so that if you go through the apprenticeship program, you're able to transfer across companies, across states. So, establishing those standards is an incredibly important issue that we'll be dealing with.
Okay, I have to ask this. Is Abigail Panariso still here? The girl?
Oh,
Did she leave?
yeah, she's right there, our Girl Scout.
Okay, you need to stand.
You're embarrassing her.
I think it's so cute. This is what she says. I'm a Girl Scout cadet working on my Silver Award project for a Southern Nevada honor flight. Can you come to my welcome home celebration at McCarran Airport?
Absolutely.
Wait a minute,
When
it's
is
better. Welcoming our World War II veterans home.
Wow. Abigail, believe it or not, tomorrow morning, I am going out to Tule Springs to unveil the Gold Award of one of the Girl Scouts that was from the troop I started back over, I don't know, 10 years ago. She has used all recyclables to build a mammoth out there to the entrance of the National Monument. And so I am all in for Girl Scouts. I'm all in for your project. I'd be happy to be there. My only qualifier is scheduling. But if we can get it on the schedule, it'd be an honor for me to come. And you know what? I think Girl Scouts is an incredible organization. And not only are you doing a service project for your community, you're learning so many skills that are going to transcend your whole career. And you're building leadership skills that are going to serve you for life. So thank you so much, Abigail.
And Abigail, I have to ask, did you bring any peanut butter patties with you?
Nobody asked. They just quit selling them.
Mark, I'm not going to even pronounce your name, but it's from Mark, and this question is on the suicide rate is on the rise with children under the age of, I believe he said 17 years. More people, educators, civic leaders, community leaders need to step up and address this issue. I guess he said, what can be done in terms of awareness?
Yeah, I mean, I think first and foremost, it's awareness. And we need to make sure that we're treating mental health as an illness. And not only that, we're identifying early, but also intervening and offering the support. It's one thing to identify a problem, it's the other to open your arms and make sure people are getting adequate access. You know, I'm concerned in potential cuts to Medicaid and Medicare. I'm concerned about making sure that we have enough practitioners in our community, in our schools, that are able to provide these services. So working to making sure we're fulfilling that pipeline and we're protecting the funding so that people can have access to this care is important. But I also do believe that awareness is a key part, and outreach, because so many times by time someone says I'm at risk, it's pretty late in the process. So making sure we're identifying early and helping early is important.
Okay, there's a number of questions on immigration, and Kyle has a few, so I'll sort of combine your questions, Kyle, wherever you are. Do you support a merit-based immigration system where citizens are put first, folks know English, don't go on welfare, and the needs of Americans are met? And then he also says, should we protect the border considering an illegal alien murdered Ford in Rio?
Well, first of all, you know, this is an issue. It's an incredibly important issue in this country. And I have said consistently that we need comprehensive immigration reform. Which is, I'm getting there.
Not a wall.
First of all, you know, I believe that we do need border security. And we need to define what the merits are, who we want to come to our country, and how. There are many, we have, and it's, again, I say it's comprehensive because it's not just one thing or the other. I mean, we have our H-1 visas, we have our family system, we have our lottery, we have the caps that we have for different countries. And so I think, what ends up happening is we end up demonizing this conversation and bringing up one point or another without sitting down and talking through what the key parts are and what we're willing and not willing to accept. And I must say, we're having these conversations in the Problem Solvers College.